All right, cool. All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I don't know what this extra screen is here with some. No, I need it to go away. Hi, how are you? I don't know why it's not stuff.
Thank
Okay. Hey, I think I can see the participants. Yeah, I can see. Okay. Um, okay, I know I had somebody else that I think she was struggling trying to get in. I'm about to get started. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So today's class, as you know, is Planetary Power Plays. And so I'm going to teach you how to time your next big breakthrough and how to break through karmic cycles using astrology. A lot of astrologers, so I actually learned of this technique from my astrologer. Um, and she kind of showed me how um we would go back, essentially we would go back through my transits, and she would be, some transits, happen multiple times in your life. So she would be like, when was the last time this happened for you? And it would be a very similar, like, situation and or test that was coming up, or even like a blessing. So I'll give some examples later as we get into the class, but that's essentially what this class is going to teach you. If you do not know how to read a chart, I do have some freebies on my website. I do have some resources for that. You can also ask me questions if you need to be able to like locate certain things on your chart. But I'm gonna try to make this as simple as possible. So let me go to the next page. There we go. Okay, so welcome. So today we're diving deep into the art of divine timing. And just so you know, you are not here by accident, but if you're on this live, you probably are already spiritual and know that. But you're here because your breakthrough is closer than you think. So by the end of this class, you will understand how to spot life-changing opportunities using astrology, and break free from karmic cycles keeping you stuck, and how to strategize your next big move, with cosmic confidence. So about me, who am I? Um, my name is Lejay, and right now my brand is Deluxe Oracle. I'm an astrologer, a wealth and love strategist, and energy alchemist. So I pretty much just help people, and that's really it. Like I just help people figure out how to navigate life in an easier way. And the modality that God has blessed me to be able to understand is astrology. And so I'm able to use that as well as my intuitive gifts to help people make more money or find areas of weakness or find areas of power, um, and how to enhance themselves in a way that is in alignment for their personal growth. So that's me. And so, what is a planetary power play? What are we learning about now? So, it's really about alignment, truthfully. This happens when you take action in sync with the universe's cycles, and other people know that. Other people know how to do that. Um, when the planets are working for you, you move with ease, grace, and power. It's just flow. And truthfully, I've seen this happen in my life and other people's lives. Um, when you do things in alignment with the planetary cycles that are happening, and especially if those planetary cycles are um, aspecting or hitting other aspects in your chart. So we'll talk about that in just like I think in the next couple of slides. You just see that stuff is just easier. Just like when you try to do things during Mercury retrograde, you'll be like, dang, like I had all the problems at the airport. I never have this many problems. It's the same thing on the other end. Like things can be 20 times easier because you did it in a really auspicious day that aspected your Venus or your Jupiter, and then you got, a free meal with it, whatever it was, you were trying to do. It'll be easier and will make a bigger impact. And so we'll talk about that. And I have a couple of celebrity examples, which I enjoy because I have just seen, I follow a few different astrologers. Actually, the woman who taught me astrology professionally, her entire channel is she almost has like a celebrity gossip astrology channel, but she hasn't been wrong. Like, and it's just because she's able to, skillfully decipher the chart. So we'll move forward. So the big three planets of power. So if you know nothing about astrology, and I'm going to try to explain this in a way that is not like challenging to understand, right? Um, so the big three planets of power. So this is how you know when and how to make your move. And I'll try to speak a little bit about what things you should be looking for. So first is Jupiter. Jupiter is considered the planet of luck, right? So that's like a given. Everybody loves Jupiter. He's all about expansion and wealth, and it is your green light for growth. So the most popular and um any astrologer would tell you that your Jupiter return is supposed to be a lucky time for you. And that is not always the case. Well, it is the case, but it also depends on what other planets actually aspect your Jupiter. But for the most part, when Jupiter goes back into the sign that it was where when you were born, which it does every 12 years, so you have multiple Jupiter returns that happen in your life. Every 12 years, you're having a Jupiter return. 12 and a half or so years, you're having a Jupiter return. So when you're having these, what's happening is your planet of luck, when it's being aspected, that's what we say in astrology, is being influenced or it's being energized by, I guess is the way to explain transits, by that same planet coming around again. So the energy is like emphasized. So I literally just wrote an article about this. So like Kendrick Lamar, everybody's like, dang, like this dude, he had a pretty steady career, you know what I'm saying? He was doing good, as a rapper, but he took off over a diss track. And now he's getting brand deals even more. Like he kind of has always been like this kind of weird, nerdy, kind of Lupe Fiasco-ish type dude. And you know, he had his own sector of fans. Like nobody ever thought he would like do the Super Bowl by himself. I remember he went up there with Dre, but no one ever thought he would do it by himself off of it's like he just had a rapid skyrocket growth. Like that's Jupiter. So his Jupiter is in Gemini, and Jupiter is in Gemini right now. So I would tell anybody who has a Jupiter return coming up, like get your ducks in a row. And I'm not saying that you won't have a skyrocket moment out of something you didn't think was going to be that big, like it happened with Kendrick. Um, but you want to make sure you have all your stuff together so that when the opportunity is there, you can take it. It's like Jupiter gives you opportunities. So you want to be able to take it. So how you can plan for that and get in alignment with that will be that you're getting your website together, or you're completing the training, or you already have, you know, 50 videos on YouTube that you've already recorded. Like you're already putting in the work so that when Jupiter comes in, you can just take off. Now, of course, if Jupiter is in a positive aspect to your Venus, this can also be great for you because Venus is the planet of love and material wealth. If Jupiter is in an aspect to your Mars, it can also be great. You just have to be careful because Mars is a little dangerous. Um, that would be a good time to like strike. It's kind of like that energy. It's like strike while the iron is hot, which we'll talk about Mars next. Um, if your Jupiter is near your North Node, you may have downloads or be led to do something that can change the trajectory of your life. So it depends on where Jupiter is, and it also depends on the houses. So I'll also send out another graphic of the houses so you can understand. So I'm just going to give some examples. So like if Jupiter's going through your 10th house, that is the house of honors and career. So when Jupiter's in your ninth house, you should already be knowing, like when Jupiter goes into my 10th house, like it's big time for me career wise. So you want to have everything prepared for that, and you're going to know that that's coming. So you want to kind of start to try to embody that energy as that transit comes in, because there is going to be things with that. So I know I remember this transit for myself. I got my first like big girl job, and had big girl benefits and did all that type of stuff. So that's how that went for me. Now, it wasn't my Jupiter return, but my Jupiter was in my 10th house near my midheaven, where my career is, right? So I got some stability in my career, even though that is not necessarily the most harmonized part of my chart, right? But it did, I knew that that was going to be a good time for me. And it was. I mean, I was able to secure a job. And I feel like after that job, I got another job that was paying me a lot more. So that was like a cool thing. So Jupiter in your 10th, Jupiter in your fifth is like romance. Jupiter going through your first. So I'm gonna just tell y'all this because the majority of people on this are women, and you know, I work in women's health. I do women's health stuff. Jupiter in your first house. Jupiter, Jupiter is Jupiter. Jupiter is Zeus in Greek mythology. If you know anything about Zeus, you know he has a bunch of children. Okay, in astrology, Jupiter is considered the husband or aspects of the husband, and Jupiter is also has to do with Jupiter has to do with actual semen. It is not uncommon. I have seen this multiple times. Okay, and this, if you go back and look at Rihanna's chart, it happened with her too. When Jupiter goes through your first house, you are going to expand literally in your first house. So you can either get a little chunky, gain some weight. Sometimes people actually do go work out and bulk up, or you'll get pregnant. So for those of you who are of childbearing age, be mindful of Jupiter going into your first house. A lot of times you will like blow up in a way, get bigger in a way, and you're in control of how that happens. You have to, if you want to start working out at the end of Jupiter being in your 12th, usually with Jupiter being in your 12th anyway, that last house before the first house, sometimes you're not always in the best feeling physically, because the 12th house can take a lot out of you. And Jupiter going through there, it's actually kind of, it can be very challenging unless you do some remedies such as going on vacations and getting a lot of rest. By the time Jupiter goes to your first house, you kind of be worn out, and sometimes your defenses are kind of down. So that's just a little disclaimer there. But Jupiter going into your fifth house, very common for pregnancy, very common for meeting new people, like romantically. Jupiter in your seventh, there are usually themes around relationships because the seventh house rules relationships. And another common place, like I said, is the 10th house. You will um, more than likely have some major career growth, right? But you do want to be careful when Jupiter is going over your Chiron. I'll put Chiron on the worksheet that I gave you guys, because Chiron is the asteroid of pain. And when anything aspects Chiron, you feel it. And so Jupiter going over Chiron, I'm going to use Kendrick Lamar again. His Chiron is also in Gemini. So one way you can, when you see Jupiter approaching your Chiron or anything approaching your Chiron, as far as Jupiter is concerned, I'll say specifically, you want to already be like, okay, I have to transmute this into something positive. Jupiter is about positivity. So, and for Kendrick, that's how it looked for him. It looked for him making a diss track. That's how that worked for him. And it's in the sign of Gemini, which has to do with speaking and linguistics. So, like, that's his thing, right? That's how he experiences that. So that's why I say look at your chart and see how it is, how it matters for you. But with Jupiter, when it goes over, can everybody mute themselves? I'm having an echo. When Jupiter goes over your Chiron, it is going to be something that will probably make you a little unnerved, and you have to be prepared to transmute that for your betterment, right? So that's Jupiter. Also Jupiter, when Jupiter goes into your second house, you are going to make more money, but please be mindful. A lot of times when Jupiter transits your second house, you can also be spending a lot of money too, because Jupiter can also make you overspend. So you want to be mindful of that. When Jupiter goes into your second house, you will be dealing with a lot of money. whether that be bringing it in and sending it out or just bringing it in. They're going to be dealing with money a lot more. The second house is your house of money. So again, when you go through a transit like that, like having a financial advisor of some kind, if you're not good at budgeting, having that in place is really important so that you can maximize that transit. Okay, so Mars. Mars. This planet moves about every 3-ish weeks. Mars is a fire planet. Mars is about that action, literally. Like, that's what Mars is. It's action, it's athleticism, it's anger, it's fire, it's taking the bull by the horns, right? That's Mars energy. Mars moves roughly about every 3 weeks. So you have a lot of Mars returns. Mars returns back to the place it is in your chart very frequently. Somebody sent a message. Oh wow. So Miss Rabe is saying that Jupiter entered her seventh house of relationships last May and she met the love of her life that month. Boom. Again, Jupiter in astrology means the husband when it comes to relationships. And so that moving into her house of marriage, it gives more opportunity to find relationships and things of that nature as well. Okay, so move this here. Well, I'll close it for now so that if somebody else messages, it'll pop up for me. So Mars comes back around a lot because Mars is like every 3 weeks. It's moving forward. Now Mars does retrograde. We're just coming out of a Mars retrograde. And that's the only thing that will like quote unquote slow it down is when it's moving backwards for that. I think it's 6 or 7-ish weeks that it does that. And then it moves back forward. So when Mars is approaching things, I will say this. Also with Mars, you can also be very mindful of your own safety with Mars. Okay. I have seen astrologers time and time again show that when Mars is actually square your natal Mars, meaning in a 90-degree angle to your natal Mars, you need to be careful. It's very common for like fight. I remember when Boosie got shot, an astrologer that I follow, he showed that Boosie, his Mars was square his Mars, and it was square his Mars in, I believe, Capricorn, and it hit him like in the leg, literally where Capricorn rules in medical astrology. So yeah, it can get that deep. So with Mars, it's about taking action. So personally and professionally, I will tell you, starting things during Mars retrogrades can be very um it can be like a letdown. It can deflate you. Like you'll be thinking, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And it's like you're working against the energy because Mars is not direct, it's retrograde. And it's you can feel it. Okay. So when Mars is direct though, and when Mars is on your Mars, which is a Mars return, or it's in a positive aspect to your Jupiter or your Venus or your a planet in your 10th house, you can plan some and let some and do some things, launch some things that will be really, really impactful, which I'll give you an example of very briefly. So Mars, another planet to look at to just go forward. Um, when Mars is going through like your 10th house, right, your house of career, or it's going through um your third house, even your house of communication, as long as you're not being too aggressive, because Mars does give off an aggressive energy. When you launch things or do things at this time or say things at this time, people are going to listen, right? Because it's Mars energy. Mars is even seen as the masculine in astrology. It's very commanding in a very outward type way. So there's Mars. Um, Saturn. Everybody talks about Saturn. Everybody talks about their Saturn return, how it jack their life up and turn their world upside down and all that stuff. Saturn is the sign of discipline and karmic lessons and long-term success and about breaking old cycles. What you do during a Saturn return or a Saturn maybe transiting your north node is crucial to your success. The north node moves every like year and a half. So you're getting these cycles maybe every, like, I don't know, 15-ish years or so. You're seeing, oh, well, the last time the North Node was in Pisces, it might have been like 20 or so years ago. I have to go get the dates again. But right now, our North Node is in Pisces. And I remember, so when I want to look back and see patterns, when was the last time the North Node was in Pisces? When was the last time Saturn was in Pisces, which it is right now? What you do, particularly during a Saturn return, which is ages 27 and a half to about 30, and then again, age about 52, and then you get another one about like 84-ish. Every 27 and a half years, you have a Saturn return. People talk about how traumatic their Saturn's returns can be, how rough they are, how they went through so much, they learned so much, they had to restructure their lives. That's what Saturn does. I have heard an astrologer describe Saturn as a black mama who comes home and you the child, right? And how Saturn is going to treat you is whether you took the chicken out of the freezer or not prior to Saturn getting home. Either you did what Saturn told you to do, you got on a disciplined track, you started working, you started handling your business, right? Or you just said, child, I'm about to just keep doing what I've been doing. When you do that, Saturn will smack you. It will smack you. If you look at these ages or you look at your own Saturn return, 20 ages 27 and a half to about 30, you'll be like, yeah, it was a lot going on then. And it may have hit you a little bit harder depending on where it is in your chart or whether you were trying to get your life together or not. So wherever Saturn is in your chart, that's where you want to be the most disciplined in your natal chart, but also where it's transiting, right? Is where you want to be. So maybe you have Saturn in your second house, but it's in your fourth house right now. You want to make sure that part of your life you're not playing with because it's going to jack up everything else. And you're going to have to wait another 27 and a half years before you can really truly correct it because Saturn moves really, really slow, right? It moves one of the slower moving planets, much like Pluto. So like Pluto moves like it's like a generational planet. It's like every 20, 30, like 20 to 30 something years. And it's definitely seen as a generational planet because it's so impactful in generation. So it takes 230 and something years for it to go through the whole zodiac. So those things that are held within those time periods, like right now with Pluto in Aquarius, the things that we are doing during this time, until it comes all the way back around and we're not here anymore, our descendants are going to be dealing or not, and the people who live on this earth are going to have to deal with the decisions that we made. So it is on a big collective global scale, really. But you, of course, you're here because you want to make sure that you're living your life in alignment with your highest good, right? And so that's why I have to go ahead and commend you guys for even taking this class because that means you actually care about your future and how you can try to structure it to live quote unquote your best life. So this is kind of like why like our ancestors, our mothers always, our grandmothers always be praying, always because you always want to keep when this transit comes back around, when Mars is back in, I think it's in Cancer right now, and Venus is back in wherever, when these planets line up again, if they ever do in this lifetime the way they are now, that energy is going to, you want to make sure that you're doing positive things with the energy now. So when it comes back around, it's not another test because that's what happens. If every time Jupiter goes into your fifth house, you have a baby by a stupid dude, you're going to be like, why every 12 years I have, well, because you're not clearing up that energy when Jupiter's in your fifth house. Maybe you're supposed to be getting wined and dined in romance and not being lustful. And both of those things are fifth house things, but maybe that's your personal lesson and you're not um heeding the lesson. So it just keeps coming back around. So this is how you clear that karma, particularly Saturn in your North Node. Those two things, like, you have to be mindful of that energy. So I'll give you an example. So when the North Node was in Aries, this was the last transit that we had. That means the South Node is in Libra because that's how the North and South nodes work. It's always the opposite sign. So when the North Node was in Aries and the South Node was in Libra, as soon as I saw that was the next transit coming up, I was like, it's gonna be a lot of divorces going on. And I wasn't trying to be negative. I just know Libra rules marriages, and the South Node is what you need to discard of in order to ascend. And the North Node is what you need to embrace in order to ascend. So I knew it was going to be people divorcing left and right. I knew it was going to be stuff coming out. I knew there were going to be people stepping into new modes of leadership because that's what Aries rules is leadership. And so that's what happened. So for instance, we'll use Cardi B as an example, who is a Libra as well. She started going through a divorce while the South Node was in Libra. Her husband was embarrassing her. He was committing infidelity. All these things were going on. In 12 to 14 years, she she needs to be doing healing work on herself here. She is going through a divorce, right? But in 12 to 14 years, is she gonna have another man that is either her husband or his husband material, quote unquote, so she thinks. And he may be, I'm not saying he won't be, but if she has not healed and worked on the pain and trauma from this last South Node in Libra transit, when it comes back around, I'm sorry, it's not 12 or 14 years. In the 20 or so years, 24 or so years, she is going to have to work through certain challenges through that in that relationship if she has not cleared the energy from that, if she has not worked on that. So it's kind of, I don't want to say the universe is like always testing us, but it's like the universe is kind of like giving you things to see how you're going to react. Right. But certain time spaces, like the North Node being in Aries and the South Node being in Libra, it holds a certain energy. And so you have to be mindful of that when those transits are happening. Or, if you are a married person, the South Node goes into Libra, you need to start praying for your relationship. Okay. Because it is definitely things are going to start occurring um that are going to ask you, what do you really value in this relationship? Because that is the question that Libra asks. Okay. Um, let's see here. So breaking karmic cycles, which is what I was kind of already leading into. So are you repeating the same lessons in love, money, or purpose? This is a sign of karmic loops. So if you're like, I always date the dude who don't have no money, or I always meet dudes that got four baby mamas, or I always get a job that, they treat me like shit. That was actually something I have said frequently. If that's you, then that's a karmic loop. So Saturn shows us where these patterns live and how to finally graduate from them. So you have to see, where is Saturn? Like, where is Saturn and where is it transiting and where is it at in your chart? Because where it's at in your chart is how you think. So if your Saturn is in your first house, you are automatically very hard on yourself. You automatically, or you have been conditioned to think lower of yourself, and you may have had to work yourself out of that. So that's, I don't want to say it's a weak area, but it's an area to be fortified. And so how to break free from fear, break free from fear and self-sabotage. So this is where you will look at Chiron, the asteroid Chiron. It looks like almost kind of like a little upside down key on your chart. If you need help, of course, send me a message. I can, help you with that. Um, how to break free from fear and self-sabotage. So you will look at Chiron and see like, well, this is where there is like a weakness, quote unquote, or a leak. And you want to try to journal about that. You want to try to figure out, how is this affecting me? Where is this stopping me? So I was using Kendrick Lamar as an example. His Chiron in Gemini, he actually used to stutter. So I don't know if he went to speech therapy. I don't know if he did a magical ritual to get himself out. I don't know what he did, but he made a career out of something that was supposed, I mean, it doesn't even make sense. Like, oh, he used to stutter and now he's just a lyricist, right? Those things seem opposite, but he always had the power. Obviously, there he had Jupiter in Gemini, he has his Sun in Gemini, he has his Venus in Gemini. So you want to take all of those things into consideration from your chart. And so that's how you do that. You have to really dig into your Chiron. And I like using AI as well to unpack certain placements in my charts. And so the exact steps to align with your design success. So you want to see, where is Jupiter, which is where you're lucky. Where is Saturn? What are some areas I have to work harder at? Where is my Venus? What just naturally comes to me what makes people and things attracted to me, or what am I able to attract with ease that is favored upon me. So you want to just go through your chart and you want to really look and see, um, I guess, the dark and the positive side of who you are as a person, and then compare it to what type of issues or problems that you feel like you've had repeatedly. Sorry, it's my phone. So to know where your weak areas are, where your energy leaks are, and I promise you they align with your chart. Like I don't even have to look at your chart to tell you. You want to pay attention to your self-talk. So if you say I always or I never, it's never me, that's something to be aware of. That's an area that you should pay attention to. And so also with breaking these things, you have to to really heal, you have to like make peace with it. You have to make peace with, you know what, I have a speech impediment. Okay, well, I have been very unhappy in love and I feel like I'm gonna be alone forever. You just have to make peace with it. Maybe I will be alone forever with it. Hallelujah, amen. You just have to make peace with it and it literally will like scatter from you. And this is actually a Kabbalistic concept that I learned from studying Kabbalah, but it's very deep and I've literally seen it. Like I've literally been at my wit's end because my kid will not stop screaming. And I just be like, well, I'm just gonna be thankful that I have a child that's screaming right now. I have a healthy child. She's acting crazy right now. I give thanks for this. And she'll like stop crying. And I know that's like a small example because people deal with crazy, very dark things in their life, and you're like, how do I be thankful for a family member dying? How do I be thankful for becoming disabled? And I get that. And it may take more time and more work for you to get through whatever it is that you feel is your Achilles heel, right? And so I want to invite you guys, if you do want to deepen your astrology mastery, I do have an astrology mastery apprenticeship that teaches you how to read charts and to predict transits, all types of different things. So if you're interested in mastering astrology and helping people along with their destiny, I do have an apprenticeship. You can always email me or go to my site. You can email me or go to my site, whichever is easiest for you if you would like to learn more. So timing your next breakthrough. So you want to make sure when you're doing Jupiter, looking at Jupiter transits, you want to see when the luck and abundance is coming or where it's coming up for you. If you have Jupiter about to go through your third house, perfect time to buy a car. Okay. Because third house rules cars and transportation, right? You want to tap into that energy, right? Because you're not going to have a problem buying a car during that transit because Jupiter's there. Mars transit, you want to know when to take decisive action, which I'll give you an example of in a minute. Saturn, when to build and commit for lasting success. Saturn being in a positive sign in your chart, in a good place in your chart. It's a good time to get married. It's a good time to start a business. It's a good time to buy a house. People always talk about the bad parts of Saturn, but Saturn is a anchor and it represents longevity. Good time to do investments when you have Saturn in your money houses, all that stuff. And so North Node, this is when fate aligns you with your life purpose and destiny. When North Node is in certain houses, you really just need to go with the damn flow. Like working against the North Node, if the North Node is in Aries and the South Node is in Libra and your husband want to leave you, don't fight him. Don't fight him. Because the North Node is in Aries, which is the sign of individualism, and the South Node is in Libra, and that's the South Node, and that's the sign and part of astrology that has to do with relationships. Just let him go. Like you have so many less problems. He might come back, right? Just let him go. So some quick examples, because I'm running out of time here. So celebrity power moves. So Oprah Saturn return. So during her Saturn return, she launched during her show during the end of it. I'm sorry, a typo there, which was in Sagittarius, which actually rules media in her house of audiences, her 11th house. So when it entered into her 12th house, she covered scandalous and eye-opening topics. And everybody knows about the Oprah show, right? Like this is how she got famous. These are not my favorite people. It's just their information is readily available and they are seen as successful in our society. Rihanna's Jupiter transit. She launched Fenty during peak expansion. She launched Fenty when Jupiter was in the sign of beauty, Libra. And the North Node was in Leo, fame. the best time to launch anything that you want to go like viral when the North Node is in Leo. And she did that. Beyonce Mars move. So she dropped a surprise album in perfect timing during a time when Mars was in Libra, which is in her seventh house, and some say her first house, where she has a stellium. So she has Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, and Mercury all in this house. And she has a song with her spouse, which is governed by Libra. So she dropped a surprise album, didn't tell anybody, with Mars in Libra, and one of her biggest songs was with her husband. Like that's not coincidence. Well timed and well orchestrated. So progressed moon cycles and solar returns. So beyond transits, there are deeper layers of timing. You can look at your progressed moon cycles, which shift every 2.5 years, and your solar return chart as well, and see how the North Node and how Saturn is affecting those charts as well. I'll give you guys a link when I send the wheel so that you can look at it yourself and just kind of see, you can play around with it and see if there's a certain moon, a progressed moon cycle that you're going through, that you've gone through before as well, that you can work on. So you want to identify your current planetary transits, align your goals with the planet's energy, and take action with confidence. No more guessing. So if you want more in-depth guidance and a personal strategy, definitely check out my website and my Cosmic Wealth Playbook, which is an ebook which will help you decipher all the parts of your chart, and it will give you tailored advice. So we're almost out of time here, but I want to thank you, and let you know it's time to stop hoping. Start aligning. Your breakthrough is waiting, but the right timing makes the difference. I hope you're ready to play your winning hand. If you have any questions, if you need a chart reading, please reach out to me. And I want to thank you guys for just coming out and spending some time with me today. So I will see you guys next time. Oh,